And here we have The Birth of Venus by Sandro Botticelli. Most people consider Venus to be the planet of love, as this is the general consensus that is taught by most astrologers in our current time. However, history shows that Venus was only popularized and given this persona from the Greeks. Previous civilizations always knew and considered Venus in a far strikingly manner, a planet of war and chaos. As mentioned in Ev Cochrane's book, The Many Faces of Venus, the planet Venus in ancient myth and religion, Venus was associated with dire portents and tales of apocalyptic disaster for the simplest of reasons. It was a primary player in spectacular cataclysms involving the earth in relative recent times, well within the memory of ancient man. The planet Venus as a disaster bringer is equally apparent in Mesoamerica. Bernardino de Sahagún, a Franciscan friar writing in the 16th century, chronicled the Aztecs' perception of Venus. And when Venus emerged, much fear came over them. All were frightened. Everywhere the outlets and openings of houses were closed up. It was said that perchance the light might bring a cause of sickness, something evil when it came to emerge. In the attempt to propitiate Venus, the Aztecs offered it human sacrifices, a practice associated with the planet in the Old World as well. A survey of Venus lore reveals a diverse set of intriguing and endlessly recurring themes. The planet as female or goddess, the planet as agent of war, death, and destruction, the planet as witch-like hag, the planet as eye of heaven, and numerous others to be discussed. It should be duly noted that this is the only time I recall having to look in demonology books to learn more about a culture's historical deities. One of the more popular male aspects of Venus was the god Set in Egypt, who was exalted during the Hyksos period where Kemet, commonly known as Egypt, was invaded by a nomadic tribe. There the Hyksos worshipped the god Set, a god of chaos and also homosexuality. Set was also known as Baal-Hadad in the Ugaritic myth The Baal Cycle, where after defeating the sea god Yam, Hadad begins his ascent into heaven, only to be brought down by the stronger god Mot. However, in that process, he gives birth to a son, Atar the Terrible, the one we call Lucifer. Lucifer is commonly known as Astoreth, the false accuser. And now Baal-Hadad is known as Beelzebul, a fallen angel, a fallen demon who in the Testament of Solomon describes his functions. And in the Testament of Solomon by F.C. Conybeare, on page 21, I quote, "And I summoned again to stand before me Beelzebul, the prince of demons, and I sat him down on a raised seat of honor, and said to him, Why art thou alone, prince of the demons? And he said to me, Because I alone am left of the angels of heaven that came down, for I was first angel in the first heaven, being entitled Beelzebul, and now I control all those who are bound in Tartarus. But I too have a child, and he haunts the Red Sea, and on any suitable occasion he comes up to me again, being subject to me, and reveals to me what he has done, and I support him. I, Solomon, said to him, Beelzebul, what is thy employment? And he answered me, I destroy kings. I ally myself with foreign tyrants, and my own demons I set unto men, in order that the latter may believe in them and be lost. And the chosen servants of God, priests and faithful men, I excite unto desires for wicked sins, and evil heresies, and lawless deeds. And they obey me, and I bear them on to destruction. And I inspire men with envy and desire for murder, and for wars and sodomy and other evil things, and I will destroy the world. And Solomon asks Beelzebul, Tell me by what angel thou art frustrated? And he answered, By the holy and precious name of the Almighty God, called by the Hebrews by a row of numbers, of which the sum is 644, and among the Greeks it is Emmanuel. And if one of the Romans adjure me by the great name of the power Elieth, I disappear at once. And in another translation of the Testament of Solomon by D.C. Dooling, we find additional information where Beelzebul is associated with the evening star, Venus. Hadad's consort was the goddess Anat, known throughout history as Inanna, Tanit, Kali, Hera, and Juno. Both Baal-Hadad and Anat have a history of child ritual sacrifice, stemming from their worship as Tanit and Baal-Hamon, as Kali and Shiva with their Thuggee cult followers, as well as even in Greece. In the book of Revelation, it refers to a harlot who sits on the many waters. Well, that harlot is Juno. In 1937, while excavating an ancient Inanna temple at Tel Brak, archaeologist Max Malawan found thousands of figurines distinguished primarily by their prominent eyes. On the basis of their stratigraphical position, Malawan dated the peculiar figurines, which he called eye idols, to the first half of the 3rd millennium BC. It was Malawan's opinion that these idols represented the Sumerian goddess Inanna. Similar artifacts have been found all across prehistoric Europe. At Troy, for example, eye idols occur continuously from the first settlement to the end of the 5th settlement. The cult of the eye goddess was surprisingly widespread, being attested as far north as Great Britain and as far east in Mohenjo-daro. With regard to the idols at the latter site, it has been claimed that they have a high antiquity in India going back to well into the latter half of the 3rd millennium BC. Gimbutas would trace the European artifacts to the Neolithic period. The West European eye goddess of France, Spain, Portugal, and Great Britain, as manifested in the stelae, figurines, and amulets of megalithic sculptures dating from the 5th to the 3rd millennia BC. Inanna, as we have seen, was identified with a planet which itself was compared to an eye by peoples around the globe. The Maya knew Venus as Nohok Ich, meaning great eye. The Polynesian people of Mangaya had an analogous name for Venus, Tamata Nui, meaning the great eye. And today we know the eye of heaven as the eye printed on our money, as well as the obvious reference that is used to symbolize the eye by Illuminati puppets in the entertainment industry. In Greece, Venus was known as Demeter, the consort of Zeus, who was really Belial. Her name means either Grain Mother or Mother Earth. The Romans identified Demeter with Ceres, which the word cereal comes from. Venus was also known as Hera, the sister wife of Zeus and Queen of Heaven. The Romans identified her with Juno. This is the same Queen of Heaven found in Babylon, known as Ishtar. She was also known as Athena in Greece, the goddess of war. The Romans identified her with Minerva. Athena herself was held to have come straight from Zeus, who was Belial, having a miraculous birth. Her myth contributed greatly to the concept of the Immaculate Conception. She was also known as Aphrodite, whom the Romans identified with Venus. Many scholars believe Aphrodite's worship came to Greece from the east, on the Greek mainland Corinth, which was the main center of her worship. Her symbol was the dove. This is the Corinthian version of Astarte, who wailed for Tammuz at Easter, and also Isis, who resurrected her consort Osiris in the form of Horus. The early church in Corinth obviously adopted these myths into their own blend and substitute for truth, complete with inappropriate sexual relations and sacraments resembling those of Mithra or the love feasts of Aphrodite Isis. Known as Artemis in Greece, the temple of Artemis Diana at Ephesus was one of the seven wonders of the world, built around 550 BC and destroyed in 262 AD. Described in Scripture as she whom the whole world worships, her cult was greatly upset by the Apostle Paul, whose message threatened the artisans fabricating and selling statues of the goddess as detailed in Acts 19. Less than 100 years after the temple was destroyed, the churchmen at the Council of Nicaea in the year 325 AD and later at Ephesus 431 AD officially endorsed what they had already absorbed, almost all of these extremely popular myths, and formed them into their own Madonna. The Mary of the Church may have captured the imagination of the world, but she is not the Mary of Scripture. She is a clone that comes from the darkest source of all, a figment of the most sinister and deceptive mind in creation. This lady is just one more version of Demeter the mother, Hera of childbirth, and Hestia of the perpetual virgin, and they are all consorts of Belial.
Flammas eius, Lucifer matutinus inveniat. Ille, in quam Lucifer, qui nescito casum, Christus filius tuus, qui regressus ab inferis, humano generis serenus iluxit, et tecum vivit et regnat in saecula saeculorum.
Now let's take a look at the astrological characteristics of Venus and how they manifested onto our physical plane during the past age of Pisces, which ended when the Sun crossed the vernal equinox in 2012. For this analysis, I'll be using two books, the first being The Beginning of Wisdom by Avraham ibn Ezra, and the second, Introduction to Traditional Astrology by Abu Mashar and Al-Kabisi. Venus denotes the desiring part of the soul, fructification and multiplication. In other words, greed. She signifies eunuchs. Eunuchs was the older word or term used to designate homosexuals or gays. Women, actors, musicians, and poets. In her share is everything that is in the belly of the earth. Of human natures, she denotes adultery, excessive lust for everything, false testimony, and natural and unnatural sexual intercourse. Of her ailments are all that occur in the kidneys and in the genitalia. And according to Abu Mushar and Al-Kabisi, admiration and elation, also pride and boasting, a love of singing and amusement and laughing, ornamentation and joy and happiness. Also leisure and being dissolute, and intoxication, and buffoonery, and resisting the people, and the sons of fornication, and every male or female fornicator or singer, or one having fun with different kinds of amusements. She signifies a multitude of perjuries and lies. She signifies every intoxicating drink, and a multitude of sexual intercourse of diverse kinds, ridicule and rejection, the strength of the body and weakness of the soul, and of masteries, the instruments of games, ornaments too in beautiful shapes, and the games of dice and chess, dancing and leisure, and fornications and fornicators, and of infirmities, cold and moist diseases which happen particularly and especially in the genital members, and of assets, what is sought on account of beauty, as are the ornaments of women and their clothing, and pearls and painting, passionate desire for eating, drinking, and sexual intercourse, and of faith, the worship of idols, and those especially in which they practice eating and drinking. Venus is the planet of desire, and also the main significant of homosexuality as evidenced in the chronicling of these manifestations. So for this, I'll be reading from Persian Nativities, Volume 1, by Masha Allah and Abu Ali. Whether the querent would be polluted by the sodomitical vice. These are their words, not mine. And so, Venus in a domicile of Mercury, while Mercury is place Ari, he will be polluted by the sodomitical blemish. Likewise, Venus in Capricorn or Pisces or Aries or Taurus, under the regard of Mars or Saturn, particularly when she is scorched, does not show another judgment. Likewise, if Venus is in one of those signs and one of the malefics overcomes her, in fact, with her in those same signs, Occidental or even Oriental, regarded by Mars or Saturn, or in a domicile of Mars, while he regards her from the 7th or the pivot of parents or the 6th, he will rejoice in the sodomitical vice. Moreover, the traversal of Venus in the 6th, indeed of the moon in the 12th at the same time, under the birth of women, afflicts the wife herself with the same blemish. But under a male nativity, it heralds the sexual impurity of the man with women, or it shows an effeminate man, especially with Venus regarded by Saturn and Mars. For Venus herself traversing in the 8th shows a citizen of the Sodomites. For with her traversing in the 6th or the 12th, with Saturn and Mars being arranged in a female sign and in a pivot, it signifies the same, especially while the lights are in a male sign and Venus is lingering in a female one. So to summarize this in astrological terms, Venus is the planet that designates homosexuality and transgenderism, as Venus itself is transgendered, being that it switches from extreme positions of male and female personas. And from this accumulative information, you can now see why this dark Venusian priesthood exalts these traits in the public the way they do. And since Venus rules over musicians, actors, and poets, you can see why these chosen key figures in the entertainment industry are the ultimate outlets of this Venusian influence. The season of sacrifice is dedicated to Venus during its exaltation in Pisces during the spring equinox, during March 19th to May 1st. This is the time when many false flag attacks have occurred and have become too frequent in modern times. The real targets of these attacks are the minds of people, so they become subjugated to fear, which is the real weapon of this satanic Venusian cult. Fear. These methodologies are considered to be the blackest magic because they use astrology to synchronize these events to maximize their potential. This is the abuse and misuse of divine knowledge, which is completely abominable. These are modern-day sorcerers abusing knowledge they never should have had. Make no mistake about it, these events are dedicated to the satanic trinity that is in Rome, who is Baal, Ashtoreth, and Atar. All of these demonic intelligences like to be hidden, which is why Venus exults in the dark and the night sky after the sun has made his rounds, where it is the only star shining at night. The way to combat these modern-day sorcerers and these malefic planetary intelligences they conjure is with light, which is knowledge. The greater our ability to gain knowledge and spread this information, the more self-empowered we will become to thwart these events in the future. And in the book of Revelation, chapter 21, "And I saw a new heaven and a new earth, for the first heaven and the first earth were passed away, and there was no more sea." This is one of the most satanic and darkest statements you can ever read. First off, the first heaven responds to Chokmah, or wisdom, and the first earth responds to Adonai, our earthly plane of existence, and sea is referencing Yam, also known as Yah, for Yahvah, Yahweh Adonai, Lord of earth, God in the flesh. This is serious black magic because you have millions of people uttering this statement, which is just another example as to how twisted this Venusian cult and demonic intelligences really are. Once again, they are trying to kill C, who is Yam, or Yah, or better known as Yahweh Adonai, or the real Jesus Christos, the real Jesus Christ, the real high priest, Joshua, meaning Yahweh is salvation. The reason why they are going to these extremes is that this Venusian cult and its false gods know that they will never exult again. The age of Pisces is over, and all the aims and goals that they have so longed for are crumbling before them. You see, Mercury is the opposing polarity of Venus to simmer down that uncontrollable desire that Venus has. During the age of Pisces, where Mercury falls, which is what the Baal cycle and story of Ishtar and Tammuz are about, the fall of Mercury and the exaltation of Venus. This happens with all the planets. It's just that this cycle, it's now being dealt with since the age of Pisces just recently ended. The fact that this Venusian cult and these malefic planetary intelligences would go so far as to attempt to completely disrupt the harmony and balance that makes this existence possible shows you how damaged and out of sync they really are. This existence is based off equilibrium. If there is no equilibrium, this system will not work. These intelligences are filled with so much darkness that they only sabotage their own existence. First off, the planet Mercury responds to Yahweh Adonai, Lord of Earth, Yam Nahar. The number for Mercury is 8, symbolizing infinity, because you cannot kill a manifestation of God. It's not possible. The number 8 balances the material and immaterial worlds, and right now the immaterial worlds are not balanced whatsoever. Essentially what this quote is revealing is that this Venusian cult and their Venusian demonic intelligences want to implement another dark age, a modern dark age, hence the removal of wisdom and the removal of God, which coincides with the plans of the New World Order, who want to remove religion, outlaw religion, outlaw all property rights, children will be raised and owned by the state, confiscation of guns, people will be complete debt slaves, they'll be subject to probably like the worst medical treatment that you can find, and consciousness will sink to a new low. Well, that's not going to happen because there are cosmic forces at play here, and most importantly, there's a timetable, and you don't want to be on the wrong side of time. Another thing about the book of Revelation and revealed by John, or An, for Anu, as in the Anunnaki, the fallen angels, the Nephilim, and Anu's children, who are Baal and Astaroth and Atar, there's a revealing quote as to who their Jesus Christ is. Remember, this is the impostor. I am the root and offspring of David, the bright morning star. The bright morning star refers to Venus. The bright morning star refers to Anat and her son Atar. These two are Ashtoreth and Moloch. Atar, known as Melech. These were demons who required child sacrifice. Do you see how manipulative and serious their chaos and confusion is? So who's the real Jesus Christ? Who's the real high priest?